But it's like, that leads me to my next question: is Bella a stereotype of like the kind of fragile female?
I mean, in a lot of ways, yes. Like, I think that's probably a lot of heat that this book probably got early on,
It was
if
kind
I
of
had to
before a
guess.
time where people were beating you up over things like that, so it probably gets that now, but it
Yeah,
maybe
I
didn't in
mean, it probably still
2006.
had
Yeah,
something of a reputation for it.
yeah,
And it is, I mean, it is like, I think it could have done it, but I hate saying this because it sounds shitty. I feel like it could have done a better job of presenting that in a way that felt a little less scattered. Like it didn't feel like there were so many things about this character that just felt like sort of random cliches about being a teenage girl. And
yeah.
that's fine.
And since
But
most
so many of
teenagers,
them were like, it was hard to picture like who she is at school, right? Because she's like different from other girls. She's like, described as like pale. Obviously, she's beautiful because like people look at her. And like we don't really understand the politics of her social circle and where that sits in the hierarchy because there is always a hierarchy. So she's like different. She's always being rescued. When she's with Edward, she's like really awkward and like sometimes pouty or sometimes just sort of girlish, which is also fine. Like she's a teenager, she doesn't fucking know what she's doing. It just didn't all tie in easily to me to one like believable single character.
yeah.
She felt like a different person in different moments.
For me, um,
I mean, and I didn't feel that way when I was reading it when I was, you know, 17.
for me, yeah, Bella was a
I think I just
frustrating,
picked the things that like fit for me, you know? I think that's the point. I think you're like just supposed to be able to relate to her as a character.
and maybe it is because yeah, it's like a teenage girl. It's going to be difficult for me to relate to a teenage girl, but it's still like not that I couldn't do it because
Yeah,
there are
but
plenty
it's
of
not
books that have
focusing
forced.
on any of
Yeah,
those things. Even when she's
right.
like, "Oh, and we talked about books, endless books," but
Yeah,
then the only references to books we get are like Jane Austen. Like, I don't even fucking want to read Jane Austen.
yeah.
I didn't then either. That's why I was reading Twilight.
That and it is. I mean, there is that kind of there's that little kind of stereotype, and this is where it's a little inconsistent when we talked about Bella's character being inconsistent. Well, it's like because they want her to be this kind of bookworm stereotype, right? Like the nerdy girl that reads Jane Austen in high school and like goes to bookstores while her friends go to dress shops, like this kind of thing, right? But also like she's dumb as shit. Like she's kind of just like a dumbass bitch, like with this like
I wouldn't even describe her as a dumbass bitch. It's just like she lacks sufficient depth to be
yeah.
real. Like she's not complex enough to be somebody who is not actually the super bookish girl, but like wants to be seen that way.
And the
Like it's
thing
not
is,
written as the like this is who I am versus this is who I want to be and like want to put out there, which is I think maybe a distinction from the sort of smattering of characteristics we get.
that and I think it's we forget that like most teenagers are stereotypes or cliches, right? Like they're so
Or trying to
young.
be.
Yeah, or they just yeah, I don't know. I mean that there is this level of being a teen and you're kind of cliche and you don't really know what's original or what isn't. You're just kind of copying what you see, what you think you're supposed to be doing. So maybe that
You don't
is
know
like
how cringy you are yet.
yeah, or how confused,
Yeah.
whatever, all that kind of stuff. So there is that level of, most teens, even though we like to think of ourselves that we weren't. I mean, we were huge cliches, right? I already talked about me being the kind of cliche as a teenager that was saying fuck Twilight because that's what little, I'm too cool for it type thing. Would definitely be a stereotype of a teen boy at that time. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's not very well written. It's pretty effective.